everyone, back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day, and it's all about the PSR deadline. Good grief. Is anyone else sick of talking about this nonsense, this financial nonsense that the Premier League puts on the clubs, the handcuffs that they put on all these Premier League clubs to stop them growing and achieving anything? I've already ranted about this, but this is just going to be another one of these videos where I talk about the ridiculous nature of this. So it looks very much like Newcastle are kind of up against it in terms of the clock. So there's a PSR deadline for Newcastle to find 30 million quid. And everyone's asking, what do you mean 30 million quid? What's all that about? So I'm just going to try and explain this as best as I can there. So for Newcastle's health check for this first round of PSR, and that rolls every 3 years. So the next round of PSR payment will have the seller money, the Adidas money, the Champions League money, I think will all be in there. And then this 3 years worth of payments doesn't quite contain all that, I think. So we need to find 30 million quid. But Newcastle United increased its revenues to 250.3 million from 180 million, I think, in the last set of numbers. But they did report a loss after tax of 73.4 million. Now, you can't go over, I think it's 107 or 125, round about that. So probably 107 sounds about right. So that's 30 million quid, isn't it? So Newcastle need to raise 30 million quid. So it looks very much like they'll be trying to sell Yankuba Minteh, who seems to be the most sellable asset. Now, this has come at the worst time for Newcastle because there's more players in the squad that I think we should be selling ahead of a real bright young prospect like Yankuba Minteh. I know he hasn't kicked the ball for Newcastle yet, but he's looked shit hot for Feyenoord, and loads of teams are interested in him. And I think this kid will go on and become a really good player. But we've got players like Miggy Armour who have totally outserved their purpose for Newcastle. But he's off playing in the Copa America. You can't sell a lad who's off playing in the Copa America. Callum Wilson's still there. He could be an option to sell Callum and then use that money to kind of balance the PSR books. I don't really know. But, this has come at a really bad time. And the Premier League need to probably understand this as well, that it's coming at a time when there's European tournaments and international tournaments on. So it's going to be very hard to sell players to balance the books here. So I don't know whether you'll be allowed to apply for an extension to the Premier League. Maybe they will see sense and stop putting teams up against the wall like this. I think you have got a bit of a window here where you can extend the deadline. More on that in a second. I did see a journalist tweet about that. But I'm just going to read some quotes from Minteh's agent here, who is Bakary Bojang, I think it is, a Bojang. So he has said it is correct that Newcastle are willing to sell the player if they receive a good offer from our side. If Newcastle wants to sell and the sporting project is good, we'll definitely look at it. We are in communication with some clubs. It looks very much like Yankuba Minteh might be going to Everton, which is mental, really, if you think about it. And, if we get Dominic Calvert-Lewin as part of that deal, I think we get the wrong end of that deal, to be honest with you, because I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's on the way down and Minteh's obviously on the way back up. But just looking at some of the journalists here, I'm reading Ben Jacobs' tweet here actually about this. So again, he understands that Newcastle need to find around 30 million between now and the end of the financial year cut off to alleviate PSR concerns, which is the 30th of June. But they said it's not a hard deadline since near-miss business can be declared. So near-miss business, I think, going back to the Brennan Johnson situation with Nottingham Forest, I think they tried to prove to the Premier League that they tried to sell him and then they couldn't sell him before the deadline, and they did sell him, and they still got fucked by the Premier League. So I don't exactly know what that means really, but it looks very much like Yankuba Minteh is the kind of the main piece of this jigsaw to get everything moving. And it's really pissing me off, to be honest, because we've got the richest owners on the planet and we're trying to balance the books by selling a young prospect that we went out and found for 5 million quid, and he looks like he could be a 30 million quid player. If that's not what football clubs are supposed to do, employ good scouting networks to go and find these gems from the far end of the world, bring them in, coach them, and turn them into brilliant players that can come into your first team and be fantastic and excel for you. And then, you might sell them for 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 million. Then you put it back into the investment in the team. You maybe buy a first team player and you go out and find another young superstar. But what is the point in Newcastle going to find these young players if they're going to have to flog them in a year or two's time? And it looks like the Premier League are closing the loophole on that, which I said in the rant video the other day as well. But it's just ridiculous. It really is that teams like Newcastle and Aston Villa, who have got wealthy owners, are having to do these types of things just to keep themselves on the right side of getting done and getting kind of a points violation here. Now, if Newcastle miss this deadline, will the Premier League come down really hard on them in particular? They make an example of them. We don't know. There's just a fear that they will. Manchester City have still got allegedly 115 charges that they haven't answered yet. Chelsea, fuck me, what's going on with them? These lot going buy more Brazilians in the Casta Geordie show. These fuckers, I don't know how they get away with the stuff that they get away with. Every time I look on social media, they're signing this Brazilian wonder kid and that Brazilian wonder kid, and you just think, what the fuck's going on there? So again, is it just top six blindness, and elitist discrimination by the Premier League? Who knows? I think that probably is the case, to be fair, but you're just speculating right now, aren't you? But going back to Newcastle United, it'll be really interesting to see whether we sell Yankuba Minteh. I mean, as I'm recording this video right now, it's the 28th of June. You've obviously got a weekend in a way. The 30th, will be Sunday effectively, won't it? And then the first kicks off next week. So we'll soon see what teams are going to get nailed against the wall by the PSR deadline. But hopefully there'll be a grace period, a way to get deals through, especially with these international tournaments. It looks very much like Yankuba Minteh is going to be gone, which is disappointing. And, if we still end up with Miggy Almiron on a black and white shirt next season, and that kid is ripping it up for whoever it may be, Everton or Lyon or whoever it may be, whoever signs him, that'll be so demoralizing. It really, really will be. But let us know in the comments below what you guys think about this PSR deadline. Do you think it's ridiculous? And what did Newcastle do? Did they just say, fuck it? And did they breach the PSR? What's going to happen? Are they going to get a 6-point fine? Are they going to, 6-point deduction and a fine? Or will the Premier League really come down hard on Newcastle because they never wanted the Saudis here in the first place because they'd upset the status quo? It's a real gamble to take, because if Newcastle get a 6-point deduction and then it doesn't matter because, we're way up in the league and, we'll buy loads of really good players, then you just say, fuck it to PSR and FFP, and it's a complete waste of time. But it's really interesting developments, this. We'll have to wait and see what happens. A lot of the journalists are very clued up about it. They're tweeting a lot about it. Likes of Ben Jacobs, obviously Craig Hope. I love to see what Craig does as well. I know he's caught up in the Euros kind of stuff, so he's really involved with that. George Colkin, that seems to be taught a true faith about it. So a lot of the journalists out there, really interesting stuff that they've got to report about it. Maybe make a bit more sense about it than me. It does my head, and it really does. I talk about business all day long. I like talking about football in my spare time, but all you're doing is looking at numbers in a spreadsheet these days, because the Premier League has sucked all the enjoyment out of football. It's all about balancing books and decimal points rather than brilliant players, and it's fucking crap. But let us know in the comments below what you guys think. Love to hear from you. Smash subscribe as well, help get us to 8K. Like the video, help the channel grow. If you want to be a member, there's an option down there too. Enjoy the Euros, enjoy the Copa America. We'll be back with some more banter soon, and we'll see you later. Cheers.